Welcome, everyone. So for those of you who are just joining, if you can take a minute to introduce yourself in the chat and complete today's pre-assessment. We'll take just a couple minutes to finish that up. Yeah, I see some people are dropping their names in the chat. I'll give you just another minute or so to complete the pre-assessment, and then we will move on to the welcoming and inclusion activity. All right, so again, welcome. It is turning out to be a fairly pretty day here in Southwest Iowa. I hope everybody is enjoying their day so far. We're going to move into the welcoming and inclusion activity. And again, we'll invite you just to add your information here into the chat. So I would like you to think about these 4 pictures and the wording at the bottom of each picture, and think about which one you identify with and why. 1 is doing the right thing even when it's hard. 2 is remaining optimistic in the face of adversity. 3, seeking to understand before seeking to be understood. And 4, taking risk to grow beyond what others thought you were capable of. So if you can just go ahead and drop in the chat kind of which one of those you identify with and why, and then we will start with our content today. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. You can continue to drop those into the chat. We're going to go ahead and move on. And we're going to start out with just some information that we actually just learned about this morning. We wanted to share because it is fairly short notice. There is something called My Ascension that is coming to the state of Iowa here in the next week or so. So over on the left of the screen, you can see the dates and locations for this, as well as the times and the contact information. And I can invite Sue if she's willing or able to share any more information, but basically all we've heard is that this is a very powerful documentary around suicide that would be well worth your while to attend if at all possible. So Sue, do you have anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Hi, this is Sue Sherber. Good morning, and I'm glad you're all here. Susan Langen sent this out in the ISCA listserv as well. And she was, many of you know Susan Langen from Cedar Falls. She said she was really, really moved by this presentation and Emma's story. And so just wanted to share that. She asked that we would get it out because it is really short notice. So that's it.
All right. Thanks so much, Sue. Okay, so you have access to the slide deck. I know Courtney's been dropping that in the chat, so feel free to go back and look at this information. at the end of today if this is something you're interested in, starting already next week. Okay, so for today, here are our learning intentions and success criteria. Our hope for you today is that you're going to learn a structure for how to select, support, and facilitate SEL practices in classrooms. Our language intention is to learn how to articulate the connections between ASCA mindsets and behaviors and the SEL competencies. And our social learning intention is that we're going to learn how to create a safe, equity-centered, productive learning and working space for both students and adults. So then over on the right, you can see the success criteria for today. So I'm hoping that by the end, you're going to be able to identify the 3 signature practices and know where and how to embed them into your instruction. Be able to share connections between the counseling ASCA mindsets and behaviors and the SEL competencies with others, and be able to infuse your understanding of the ABCs of an effective learning environment so that you can build inclusive and positive relationships with others. And so we will revisit these at the end of today as well. All right, so we're going to start out with just a super short video thinking about why social emotional development and learning is important from the perspective of some students.
SEL stands for social emotional learning.
It teaches people about how to deal with your emotions and basically helps you through life physically and mentally.
It helps me calm down and become a better person because I have to be able to work together with people.
It helps us communicate in a better way.
It really helped because a lot of bullying has stopped in the school.
My dream is to become a leader, to do something great, and these skills are going to help me to reach out to other people, to be able to connect with them in a different way.
If SEL was all around the world, it would be amazing because everybody would be kind to each other and everybody could teach everybody. There would be no wars. It would just be the most wonderful world we could have. SEL stands for social.
Okay. So social emotional development is a lot of what, as counselors, that you're engaged in every day. And so this slide was pulled from an article on the ASCA website, and I've included the link to that at the bottom of the slide as well. But I pulled out just the bullet points that talk about the school counselor's role in supporting social emotional development. So I want you to just take a minute to look at these bullets and think about what are some things that you're actually engaged in daily around these components of social emotional development. Not always good at wait time, but I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. And these next couple slides are just kind of to ground us in some data that we have available at a statewide level around some components of social emotional wellness. And these are the results from the Conditions for Learning survey from last school year. So this first slide shows our statewide data for grades 3 through 5. And you can see that the emotional safety comes out as the lowest percentage as a state. And then this slide shows those the same conditions for learning survey, but for grades 6 through 12, same year. And again, although a lot of the areas are lower for 6 through 12, emotional safety again comes out as the lowest. So just thinking about how much social emotional learning and development really is an important aspect of our work. So now I would like you just think about the video or the data or those components that school counselors help support. Out of those slides, what's something that caught your attention, maybe changed your thinking, or sparked a question? And we'll take just a minute or so to have an individual reflection. And if you would like to share that in the chat, you're welcome, but you do not have to share that with others. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the why of social emotional development. Now we're going to dig into a little bit of the what. So not only the what of social emotional learning competencies, but we're also going to be looking at the ASCA mindsets and behaviors as well as the universal constructs. So this slide basically just highlights what the competencies are, that self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And then it also highlights how it takes, you know, the communities as well as the families, schools, and classrooms to really pull together to really bring this all to life. And on the right-hand side, you can see that these are the benefits of having a strong SEL program in place. And then this is just a screenshot of something that you're probably all very familiar with. These are the ASCA mindsets and behaviors that are really a huge part of your role as school counselors. And finally, these are the universal constructs that are essential for 21st century success. So I could have pulled in the 21st century skills as well, but these are kind of the big rocks of the universal constructs that also play a huge role in building students' social emotional development. So for our first activity, what we're going to do is we're going to break out into just some random breakout rooms. And on this slide, I have linked those three things: the mindsets and behaviors, the SEL competencies, and the universal constructs. And in your breakout rooms, you're going to utilize the document here that's linked where it says breakout room. You'll make a copy for your breakout room and have a conversation around what connections do you see, where are there distinct differences, where are there similarities, and how are these things naturally built into the work that you already do. And so we're going to take about 20 minutes or so just for you to have some time to dig into these three documents and have some conversations around the similarities and differences that you can identify with those. And so I will give Courtney just a minute to get breakout rooms set up for us here.
They're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you, Courtney. And we will see you back here in 20 minutes. Line important piece that students need to be accepted and valued by others. And then C is all about competence. How can we build competence in students? And the SEL 3 signature practices gives them opportunities to be effective across lots of different contexts. Okay, so here's how we are going to engage in the playbook. We're going to do a little bit of a modified jigsaw activity. And so Courtney is going to combine some of your breakout rooms. So you're going to have slightly larger groups than what you had for the last breakout room. And each breakout room is going to be responsible for one of the 3 signature practices. And so breakout room 1 will be responsible to dig into welcoming and inclusion activities, which on the playbook is pages 11 through 18. Group 2, the engaging strategies, is on pages 22 through 35. And group 3 will have optimistic closure, which are pages 37 to 46. Okay, so as you engage in the playbook, there is a share out document that we would invite you and your team to complete. And in that document, as you read about each of these, it's going to ask you, what is it? Why is it important? What are some examples of how it might look? And what are some connections to what you're already doing? And so highlight those things as a group within the share out document. This particular document, you do not need to make a new copy. It is open for everyone to edit, but we will come back and share out. So if you want to choose someone in your group who can share out for your group, that would be helpful. So that was a lot of word vomit. I want to pause just to make sure there aren't any questions before Courtney opens up the groups. Okay, I see that Courtney did drop in the playbook itself into the chat. And also the note catcher. So any questions before we move you into your breakout room? And again,
How much time again did you say, Andrea?
Yeah, let's spend about 15 minutes or so again here, and we'll check in and see if they need more time.
Awesome. All right. 13.
Thank you,
Here we
Courtney.
go.
Share for your group. We want to take just a couple of minutes to allow some time for each group to share out with the other groups what you learned about your signature practice. So we will start with the welcoming and inclusion group. If you'd be willing to share a little bit about what you found while you dug into that practice. And go ahead and unmute whoever was responsible for sharing out for your group.
So I don't know that I was responsible for sharing out in our group, and I got a phone call in the middle of this. So I will share that we talked about that they're just great ways to invite people into the learning space, and they help really create a brave and safe place for people to be, and can prime people's thinking. And then we talked about how just the Ted Lasso example from today is a great way just to kind of get people connected. But it's also really important to know who your audience is. And because some people do not like these types of experiences, and knowing who your audience, how long they have worked together, what your intentions are behind that inclusive opener is really important to make sure that we're getting the bang for our buck in doing these types of things.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joe, for sharing.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go on to the engaging activities group. If someone from that group could share.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just bring up the document again. So engaging strategies are ways to not only have students redirect attention to the speaker in a large group setting, but also ways to actively engage them in learning so that they feel like they are active partners in the learning process. and ways to avoid just kind of like lecturing or info dumping on kids for however long they're in that setting. They're important because that positive redirection protects the relationships between students and instructors. And it also allows students to feel like they have a role in their learning, and it creates opportunities for them to engage with peers and learn from others' perspectives than just the instructors or their own. Some examples that I think a lot of people have been using in lessons would be like think, pair, shares, gallery walks. What we're doing today is another example of a engaging strategy. There's also a lot of ones in there that had like kids like have to like write things down on note cards and then go to another student and trade that information and try to gather all the information that way. Some ways that our buildings are already doing this. We have like call responses that that's used school-wide, like class, yes, things like that. Checking for learning with pre and post assessments to ensure that the students were engaged the entire time, and seeing if they are mentioning anything that they learned from another peer. Turn and talks are used a lot, gallery walks and things like that. So they're really just ways to make sure that students aren't just being talked to, but they're actively part of the learning process.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. And we will round this out with the optimistic closure group. Could someone from that group please share?
You bet. So for optimistic closure, it's all about thinking, how can you, highlight or illustrate or encapsulate in, 2 to 5 minutes, what was most important about the time together or the lesson or the work that everyone was doing. And so think about it in terms of reflection of the learning and the next steps that, as a group you could take or individually you could take. Theoretically, why is optimistic closure important? Usually it's a moment to, illustrate or demonstrate growth. Also encourages students to think about their own selves in terms of the future. And so an example might be, for 2 to 5 minutes, think about your future self or your future me, and ask yourself, how do you want to take this learning with you? What questions do you still have? How do you see yourself, next week? How do you see yourself next year in light of what you learned today? Another example might be, I am curious about ... So I am still curious about, how I can adopt this learning, or I'm still curious about what this means or what that means. And then some things that we already do, like we already make goals with our students. We already challenge thinking, like we learned about, friendships today, or we learned about growth mindset today. I challenge you, on this exit ticket to, make a goal about how you can commit to this practice down the road. And so there you go. That's a little bit about optimistic closure. It's cool beans, everybody.
Very good. Thank you, Brett. Okay, so we're going to do just a super quick recap. Thank you all so much for sharing. And this just highlights again kind of the purpose of each of these. So your welcoming inclusion activities, routines, or rituals really create that climate of inclusion and belonging. And I know Joe kind of referred to this, like getting everyone's voice in the room, building in an element of personal choice, being purposeful about the needs of your participants, and making sure whenever possible, each person is welcomed by name. And then this is the engaging strategies, building relationships to one another in the content. So again, Anna talked a little bit about making this, creating the opportunity for sense making with others, not just with the teacher. Supporting everyone's learning, helping the group stay focused and in a state of optimal learning, and including a variety of strategies that honor the array of cultural norms and personal learning and working styles that exist in the group. And then Brett again rounded us out around the optimistic closure. So again, this is a way to feel connected, productive, and inclined to return. It's that opportunity to reflect, be forward, future focused, and to again, respect the diversity and hear everyone's voice. So one thing I did want to just share, this is something as you're getting more familiar with the 3 signature practices, and this kind of goes along with being purposeful. and knowing your audience. I don't know how many of you got through the playbook far enough to find this gem, but it is on page 61, and it's just a planning worksheet that really helps you think about who and when, and most especially there at the bottom, like what's your purpose for this activity and what does it align with? So are you trying to align it to a specific mindset or behavior? Are you trying to tie it to a specific SEL skill? What is the purpose of creating this in your instruction? So it is linked in the slide deck, but then it's also in the practices playbook again on page 61. So something you could utilize or share with others that you work with to be more purposeful in the planning of this. Okay, so that really wraps up the content for today. I think we're finishing a little early, which I'm sure does not hurt anyone's feelings. You all have lots of stuff to do. But we're going to take just a quick look back at the learning intentions and success criteria. And then in your post assessment, you'll be able as well to reflect on how you feel about these success criteria after today's content. So I'll give you a second to look at those. Okay. Would also invite you at some point here in the next few minutes to complete today's post assessment. And then to close us out, our optimistic closure activity today is called Suit Yourself. So I want you to look at these prompts and add to the chat either something that you're feeling after the content today. Blank made me feel blank because blank. Some new ideas that may have grown. I have a new perspective on blank. Some gems that last forever. Your biggest takeaway today was blank because of blank. Or something new that you dug up today or you want to continue digging into. So I want to continue digging into blank. So I would invite you to choose one of those prompts, add your optimistic closure to the chat, and then again, please complete your post assessment. And with that, we hope you all have a wonderful weekend, that the snow melts and that spring is coming soon. So thank you so much for being here today, and we hope to see you all next month.
Stay warm, everyone. Happy SEL Day.